Welcome to Slash Forward. Midsommar's story presents a nuanced exploration of relationships, loss, grief, healing, and community. Our core group of graduate student friends will experience these things over a backdrop of the most idyllic and quaint little Swedish commune. And yeah, most of the people we come to know are going to perish by the most brutal and disturbing means imaginable, but that's really the first step on the pathway toward personal growth. Let's hold hands and venture off together as we open on a fine winter's morn, where a siren of the forest lulls us into a false sense of security. Because we're in the real world. We drop in on a late-night communication from Dani to the rents, worried about a cryptic message she received from her sister Terry that seems to carry intensely ominous undertones. I mean, could you imagine ending a message like that? She calls her boo for emotional support, but then also tries to bottle it all down and play coy, so she doesn't become a burden. He does know about the clouds on the horizon.
How's the sister situation?
But he's also trying to smoke out with the boys, you know? This only layers the drama as she confides in a friend that she's worried she's saddling Christian with more family baggage than a boyfriend of 4 years should be responsible for. Her feminine intuitions are actually right on as he's been mulling over his intent to break things off with her. They agree that she seems to have a lot of emotional needs, indicating she would be better off on her own. Then, to further prove their point, she calls him again.
Hey.
Yes, hello? Who is it? Talk about drama. Oh, that is incredibly bleak. We find a meticulously laid out scene in which we follow exhaust hoses through the house into her parents' bedroom and down the hall and directly into Terry's mouth. Christian sucks it up and gets his mentals prepped for the impending storm as they find themselves awash in unending waves of grief, as you could probably imagine. Then a bright new day to contrast with the immeasurable darkness creeping into our souls. Christian has to step out to fulfill a social obligation. He would say that he'll be back soon, except she decides that she would like to join him, which is just perfect. Her attention is piqued by the mention of everyone following Josh on his thesis trip to Sweden to visit Pele's hometown. Nothing major, just something they've been mulling over, possibly doing 2 weeks from now. This results in a car ride home that is as frosty as the Swedish winter. And see, he had mentioned at one point a desire to go, but had never confirmed his intent. But he actually, literally just decided that he was going to go today. Honestly, you know, all this pressure around open, direct communication is pretty heavy, so Christian may just hit the dusty trail for now. Her thirst for companionship and support has her apologizing to him for being presumptuous, and she pleads for his mercy while he dreams of being on the other side of that door. Later, at a planning sesh, Dirty Mark tries to verify the quantity of sex clubs in Pele's boyhood town, but Dani's arrival dampens the conversation. Oh, also,
I invited Dani to come to Sweden.
This hits like a brick to the face despite his assurance that she will flake out on them. But when she arrives, she seems kind of excited. Pele's family has a sweet 9-day festival of midsummer pageantry planned, and they're arriving on her birthday. It's like a pagan dream come true.
You know, I'm very, very glad you're coming.
It'll be good for her. The fresh linen clothes, the clean, cool air, the getting over the unspeakably terrible thing that happened to her. In the blink of an eye, they're admiring the lush Swedish landscape and Viking women. They seem to make the 4-hour drive in slow motion, but end up arriving before you know it. They stop off at the poppy fields where the community's returning youth like to congregate. They meet up with Pele's old friend and his London besties he brought along. It's tradition to enjoy some shrooms to get in the right mindset for commune life. Dani reluctantly partakes because she wants to keep the vibe mellow. Afterward, the field begins to make more sense, and while the clear blue sky at 9 p.m. freaks Mark out, Dani has no problem chilling and melding with her natural surroundings. That is, until someone offhandedly mentions family. This results in a struggle to fight back a cascade of tumultuous feelings. The effort to escape this sends her down a dark path that ultimately results in her fleeing into the woods, and then waking up the next day when they prepare to make the final leg of the trip. Their destination is only reachable via a long, winding walking path through the Swedish countryside. It eventually terminates in the most beautiful and whimsical little village of Luddites. It's a scene almost too good to be true, full of welcome and good tidings. The festival actually starts the next day, which is almost unbelievable considering the amount of high-level choreography and official proceedings happening at every moment. In a brief toast of the occasion, we learn they engage in this version of the event every 90 years, so they're very lucky to get this little peek into Swedish culture. As the matron of ceremonies banishes spirits from the realm, the locals dance among the lilies while the visitors treat these sacred proceedings like it's Oktoberfest. Christian is a sucker for festivities, so it only takes a little tap on his back fat to get him up into the line dance. In the vacuum of his absence, Pele swoops in with the birthday offering, the only thing Dani has received so far. Then, during a walk and talk, we discover that this magical commune has a little bit of everything. Sacred forbidden temples, a bear in a wooden pen, artwork depicting stories about love potions comprised of genital blood that may be important later, and if you're into runes, forget about it. Additional exposition reveals that tradition tells them life is divided into 9-year seasons that end at age 72. A part of this ceremony also involves crowning the May Queen, determined by the results of a dance contest. At the end of a long and informative day, Christian does his best to celebrate his lady in a way that doesn't seem like an afterthought, resulting from being tipped off by his bros. Not sure if you are convinced by that, but they move on and prepare for some good rest, since there's gonna be Idyllic the next day, a folkloric myth that only Josh is familiar with, but he chooses to keep to himself to maximize the surprise. The next day, they all stand at the rune-shaped tables until their honored guests arrive, and sit when the time has come. Since it's their special day, the entire community follows their lead. Once the feasting has abated, the elders stand and begin ritualizing. A toast is raised in their honor, and after choking down the acrid fluid, they're carried off like royalty. They're carted to a sacred gravel pit where they ascend to high point as the horns are sounded and the scriptures are read. Then they make a small blood sacrifice in fealty to the great sun god, for whom she offers big ups before pasting herself all over the sacrificial rock. This is a fairly harrowing experience for the foreigners, who suffer from antiquated ideas about the human life cycle, and they barely start to get culturally acclimated when the gentleman takes a flying leap but flubs it with a pencil dive. This evokes a tremendous din from the crowd to drown out the noises that result from not dying well, and possibly partially to distract from the actions taken by the cleanup crew to ensure proper consummation of the ceremony. When Connie and Simon nearly have an aneurysm, it begins to dawn on Josh that he might be a dick for not saying anything. But it shouldn't be too big of a deal because they explain it very clearly. Why go in fear, resisting the inevitable, when you can control your fate and freely give yourself in honor? Well, I'm sold. It seems like Dani kind of vibes with that, but also needs a moment to process her grief. Back at the barracks, Christian confides in Josh that he's decided on his thesis. He's gonna do it here, on this community. And this is upsetting news, as Josh was doing his on Midsommar specifically, but obviously would be interested in refining his subject upon seeing the village's intriguing inner workings. This causes some strife, but it's moot for now because Pele's not even sure he can get clearance to write this stuff down. Pele walks in on Dani, who's leaving out of frustration from feeling like she has no purpose here. After refusing his calming scent sack, he tries to convince her of the ceremony's healing power. When he was younger, he lost his parents in a fire, and this community has always made him feel held, and she deserves no less.
Dani, do you feel held by him?
I guess we'll have to see what he means by that. Speaking of, Christian addresses her while meditating, but with an emphasis on working to get acclimated to this new culture rather than on the horror they just witnessed. Dani borrows a sleeping pill that evening, but it's not good enough to prevent her from waking up to find the boys slipping out the door without her. As they leave, it becomes apparent that they really don't care. Then she belches out the black smoke of her trauma, which I figured out is part of a dream. She's actually sleeping soundly. While she sleeps, this little ginger minx slinks over to Christian's bed to bless him with the mysterious talisman. Sometime the next day, Pele confirms the thesis has been authorized under the condition of a signed agreement that no names or locations will be used and that it must be split with Christian. Then Josh takes this chance to ask about Maya's trinket, which is identified as a love rune. Christian is notified of this development and is informed that Maya was authorized for sexual contact last year. So she's legal, my dude. Violence then erupts as Ulf takes extreme offense when Mark whips out his filthy member and pisses all over the ancestral tree that contains the ashes of their elders. But I mean, how are you supposed to know where to take a leak? Back at the sex barn, we bear witness to an unusual scene. Connie is gathering her belongings in order to leave, but then Ode arrives to let her know that Simon went ahead to the train station without her and left instructions that she's to wait until the truck returns to fetch her. Not sure if you buy that, but this is a very reasonable and easily explainable plan. Dani tries to commiserate about this with Christian, who is more interested in learning how they avoid the pitfalls of inbreeding in such a small, insular community. It's actually through the invitation of outsiders to participate, if you were wondering. Feeling a bit unmoored, Dani is happy to be invited to help with the food prep, where the ladies are putting together a course of rustic meat pies for dinner. Elsewhere, Josh is soaking in as much as he can about their unique runology, which is an ever-evolving cipher that is updated every generation by deliberately inbred oracles, whose minds are considered to be unclouded. Like young Reuben over there. Separately, and in various locations, we hear a disturbing scream in the distance. At dinner, they're told that Connie was eventually driven to the train station. It's a strange sequence of events, but one that Dani could imagine happening to her given her current circumstances. Under the gracious hospitality of their hosts, they all tuck into their meals. Unfortunately, since underwear is not required in the kitchen, the errant pube is sometimes present. Unfazed, Christian just washes that down with some of his blood orange lemonade. Mark is invited by a fair maiden to come and see something. A welcome invitation to remove himself from the icy gaze of Ulf. Something about all this weighs heavily on Josh's soul. Hoping to clear his rune-filled mind, he takes a brief jog to the book's sanctuary. He sets right into taking forbidden pictures of their sacred text and is startled when Mark walks in on them, not only because they're not supposed to be there, but also because he kinda makes out in the darkness that Mark is nude from the waist down for unknown reasons. A mysterious carpenter then takes him down, and what we discover to be just the visage of Mark looms over him. Pantslessness still unexplained, this is truly fatherless behavior all around. The next morning, the remaining members of the group are enjoying a light breakfast when it's announced that the rune book is missing. They then inquire about the suspiciously timed disappearance of both Josh and Mark. But don't worry, Christian has this one covered.
I just pray you understand. We don't associate as friends of his or collaborators or anything.
Well, that's that. So Dani is invited to join the women. Steve requests Christian's presence in her cabin. He has asked his thoughts on Maya as, unbeknownst to him, they have been approved for mating. That's a lot to think about. Meanwhile, the ladies get dolled up for the May Queen celebration. They're each served tainted lemonade to help them loosen up. We then learn that this is less about the dance itself and more about stamina. So Dani's ability to get sturdy will mean nothing here. However, when the rhythmic thumping of the drums begins, she knows just what to do. They go round and round, switching steps on occasion. She eventually makes it into the Elite 8. Christian joins the crowd of spectators and is offered spring water with special properties, of which he reluctantly partakes. On the field, despite the flop sweats and constant redirection, Dani doesn't have any quit in her, so she spins and spins until she's speaking damn Swedish. It's the universal language of dance, and when the frenzy subsides, she finds herself to be the last woman standing. It's a surreal honor as she's hoisted up, carried back, and seated among the many pulsating holes of nature. Things don't get any more grounded as they try to convince her to swallow a whole herring for good luck, and Christian's off to the side tripping balls. Highly sensitive to suggestion in his current state, he struggles to focus and keep his cool while Maya flagrantly attempts to lead him away. Once they've all finished their fish paste and blood soup, Steve notifies Dani that the queen is required to bless the crops and livestock. Alone, Christian must stay behind. Feeling the pressure of royalty, she rides off with a host of ladies in waiting while a trail of flower petals is laid out for Christian to follow back to the love shack in front of everyone, which is awkward because they know what you're going there to do. He gets robed up like he's at a sauna and is offered some fresh hallucinogens. Sia then welcomes him into the room of waiting. As tradition requires, he finds himself face to face with one of the sexual matrons, making intense sustained eye contact. When he gets close to climax, she gives him a little booty boost to ensure that when the time comes, he sows his seed deeply. And young Reuben is there as well, always watching. When the royal procession gets back, Dani's instructed to go to Steve's house, but the queen does as she pleases, and she has suspicions about what's going on. Her suspicions are proved correct, and the sight of what's happening sickens her. A wellspring of grief and pain is uncorked as a result, but she is well attended as the ladies provide her with sympathetic grief. Depending on where you're at in life, this doesn't look half bad. Christian runs off in a drug-induced stupor and now sees what he hasn't before. A friend buried in the garden, and another splayed out into the most beautiful blood eagle you've ever seen, before being provided with more free drugs. When he awakes, he's unable to move or talk, and he's encouraged to just relax and enjoy the ceremony. There are to be 9 sacrifices, the 4 foreigners who were dedicated to Olga, then 4 more locals offered up freely by the community, plus 1 to be chosen by the May Queen. But then we find out she's only allowed to pick between 2 options, which really isn't much of a choice. As the various hay-stuffed effigies are taken to the sacred temple for staging, I could really see the case for either of Dani's possible decisions. But then we find the youngsters in the meat shack learning about butchery, and Christian is there. He's suited up in the bear shell, so he may be banished for his beastly wickedness. Once everything is set and everyone is ready to go, the sacred temple is set ablaze so the sacrifices can get to doing their jobs. Somehow, you just know that a new age of prosperity is upon them. Oh, also, the yew tree did nothing to eliminate fear or wipe away the pain. Outside, the villagers all writhe on the ground in agony as Dani comes to find a strange comfort in the beauty of foreign cultures. It's really sad that they have to wait another 90 years to experience this level of ritualization again. If you think you can handle having your emotional state wrecked even further, check out this video. Now that we're here, I want to congratulate you for making it to the end of the video and affirm that you are a very special person because of it. And if you enjoyed the video, I would love for you to become part of the channel by subscribing. Thanks for watching.